Our story begins as we witness a black dragon fail its heavenly tribulation, only to realize we've landed in the world of Mr. Vampire and Uncle Geo. But the first thing he does isn't seeking protection. Instead of clinging to Uncle Geo, he retreats into a mass grave to cultivate in secret, all because he entered this world as a small snake. To one day reach the heights of that black dragon and transcend his form, he decisively abandons traditional cultivation. He plans to head into the burial grounds to devour malevolent ghosts and consume their energy, and then shed his demonic body to become a true dragon. After cultivating for some time, he is finally discovered by the master of this place. No wonder the energy suddenly felt so thin. It turns out this longworm was behind it. What kind of little monster dares to cause trouble on my territory? Kill him, brothers. Haha, this is perfect. To be honest, I was getting tired of eating humans. Today, I'll taste some snake soup. These ghosts were a gang of mountain bandits in life, known for killing and arson without a shred of mercy. In death, they became even more poisonous. Right now, they are watching him cultivate and are absolutely fuming with rage. Usually it is only they who rob others. Yet today someone is stealing their energy. Charge! Eat him! The ghost leader waves his hand violently, and the other ghosts swarm forward like a hive of bees. They lunge toward him, their terrifying energy making the surroundings grow even darker. Any ordinary person here would likely be scared to death, which is, naturally, their favorite tactic. No matter how strong an enemy is, they can't fight so many at once. Several ghosts are already imagining the delicious taste of snake soup, their mouths practically watering in anticipation. Suddenly, with a sharp whoosh, the ghosts see only a dark shadow flash by. The snake demon has already vanished from sight. Where is he? Behind us. The ghost leader, being the strongest, quickly spots him in the rear, but he never expected the snake's speed to be quite so incredible. In the blink of an eye, he has darted over 10 meters away. Is this even a snake? He's faster than a pack of bodiless ghosts. Even worse, the snake demon is currently holding one of their companions in its mouth. Damn it, let go of my brother. The ghost leader immediately starts screaming, but in the next second, his pupils shrink as he witnesses a bizarre and terrifying sight. Inside the snake demon's mouth, a speck of black light appears. The ghost rapidly shrinks, instantly turning into a cloud of energy that vanishes without a trace. Every ghost present feels their scalp go numb and their skin crawl. He feels a surge of pure energy merging into his body, transforming into demonic power. A flash of joy crosses his eyes. This devouring art actually swallowed and refined the ghost directly, strengthening his demonic power by 30%. It was an unexpected delight, to say the least. Suddenly, the sound of a system prompt rings out. Ding! You have killed a malevolent ghost. Reward, 100 evolution points. Well, it seems that besides the energy gained from devouring, there are also evolution points to be had. Strengthening himself while gaining points. A double win, really. He narrows his eyes, scanning the remaining ghosts like a predator. The remaining malevolent ghosts are practically trembling with excitement, thinking today is their lucky day, yet they soon begin to sense a terrifying aura. As the killing intent thickens, the ghost leader quickly shouts to his crew not to be afraid, claiming their numbers guarantee the snake demon's death. In reality, the ghost leader isn't afraid at all. He's actually quite pleased. One less ghost means one less mouth to feed, allowing him to claim a larger share of the power. He even dreams of monopolizing the snake to gain a century of strength, rendering his useless underlings unnecessary. With a violent wave of his hand, he yells, "Kill!" He leads the charge, and the other ghosts, eager for a taste of the demon, follow closely behind. They move with incredible speed, especially as the wild winds whip up the surrounding energy into a frightening display. It's a pity, really, that they aren't facing an ordinary human, but a calculated snake demon. We see him watching the food deliver itself right to his door with quiet joy. With a casual flick of his thick, powerful tail, a surge of demonic energy sweeps across the clearing, slamming into the ghostly mob. They never expected such a counterattack, and their formation is instantly thrown into chaos. However, these ghosts are seasoned killers. They quickly rally and resume their charge. He simply snorts as his form vanishes, reappearing instantly before one of the ghosts. He activates the devouring art, opening his maw to swallow yet another malevolent spirit. A system prompt chimes, rewarding him with 100 evolution points, but he barely pays it any mind. As the pure energy transforms into demonic power, he lunges forward once again to continue his feast. The ghost leader tries to strike back, but it's utterly useless. Before he can even get close, a whistling sound cuts through the air, and he is sent flying by a tail strike that leaves his soul flickering violently. Heavily wounded, the ghost leader collapses, struggling to stand as his eyes widen in pure disbelief. How could this be happening? He is a ghost with no physical body, yet he was swatted away like a common fly. Despite being stronger than the others, he was defeated with such humiliating ease. He wonders where this monster came from, and as he watches his brothers being devoured one by one, he turns to flee. Unfortunately, it is already too late. The screams behind him fall silent, replaced by a sudden, terrifying burst of power. erupting from his rear. He feels his strength draining away as his very soul begins to crumble. The ghost leader tries to look back one last time, only to see a speck of black light before his spirit dissipates into pure energy. Another prompt rings out. He has killed the ghost leader. The system chimes with a 500-point evolution reward. He stops his devouring art, letting out a loud, satisfied burp as a strange sensation begins to surface. His aura shifts violently. He is actually breaking through. After absorbing the and malevolent energies of the burial ground and feasting on those ghosts, his cultivation successfully reaches the 5th level of the spirit realm. Before he can even celebrate, another system prompt pops up before him. It informs him that his evolution points have reached 1,000. He is asked if he wishes to evolve. There is no hesitation, of course, this is what he worked for. To reach a higher realm, he chooses to evolve. The moment the decision is made, he feels a surge of specialized power erupting from within. Every inch of his bone structure is being thoroughly refined. He radiates an infinite strength, where every twitch of his muscles brings unimaginable power. He feels as though he could tear the very sky apart. Suddenly, thunder crashes again, and his body trembles as a transformation begins on his surface. That thick layer of old scales instantly peels away. This is his second molting evolution. The new scales are darker and deeper, looking like black jewels. They are crystal clear, yet hide a dangerous mystery. The heavy rain falls rapidly, but it slides right off his body, and even the howling winds cannot leave a single mark on him. A bolt of lightning pierces the sky, its flash reflecting off his scales in a dazzling, blinding display. It is a sight one simply cannot look away from. The evolution is a success. Amidst the rolling thunder, he opens his eyes and feels the surging demonic energy and vast aura within him. After this second evolution, his body has reached a staggering length of 10 meters. He is as thick as a tree trunk, and when he stands upright, he looks exactly like a towering ancient tree. The surrounding lightning transforms into a thick mist that obscures vision and masks his presence. It lacks offensive power, but for sneaking or escaping, it is incredibly useful. Combined with his speed, it will be devastating. He takes a deep breath and clears his mind. He focuses entirely on his cultivation now, greedily devouring every scrap of power within the burial ground. Whether it is energy, malevolent aura, or dampness, he wastes nothing that can grant him strength. A massive vortex forms in the burial ground once more, spinning faster than ever. The surrounding energies gather at high speed, transforming into pure demonic power. The sun sets and the moon rises. In the blink of an eye, another day passes. Inko town is still being lashed by torrential rain, making it impossible to tell day from night. Amidst the strange and heavy atmosphere, as more cultivators arrive from all directions, even the ordinary townspeople sense a coming storm as night falls. Over a certain burial ground, an eerie silence hangs in the air, and the moonlight is completely smothered by thick, heavy clouds. We see a surface as smooth as a mirror, shimmering with a faint black light that seems to swallow all surrounding brightness, especially those eyes, glowing with a demonic luster. Deep within his pupils, an endless darkness and malice seem to hide. At this moment, the giant black snake opens its mouth wide, exhaling a thick, black mist. This energy spreads through the air, forming a hazy darkness that feels suffocating and oppressive to anyone nearby. It is as if the very air around him is being polluted. By now, the and malevolent energies within this burial ground have been completely drained by him, yet his cultivation hasn't increased again. To be honest, it was expected. Most of the energy here had already been consumed by those ghosts. Finding any leftovers was a stroke of luck, but it wasn't enough for another breakthrough. No matter, in such chaotic times, the easiest thing to find is a dead body. Not far from here, there are several other burial grounds. Though less potent than this one, they still offer plenty of opportunities. Without a moment's hesitation, he suddenly darts out, moving at high speed toward the next site. Meanwhile, just a few miles outside of Inko town, 3 people are hurrying along. 2 of them are young men with bitter expressions, looking as though they have quite a few grievances to air. One looks shrewd and capable, while the other seems a bit slow-witted. The third is a middle-aged man with a rather striking appearance, lean, upright, and resolute. His eyebrows actually join together in a single line, sharp as a sword. He radiates a piercing, cold energy that tells us he is no ordinary traveler. If we were there, we would recognize him instantly as the famous Maoshan disciple, Ling Jiao, better known to everyone as Uncle Jiao. The 2 young men beside him are his disciples, Xiuxing and Wenkai. They drag their heavy feet, long since exhausted and gasping for breath. Peering at the road ahead, they can't help but complain, asking their master if they're there yet, and if there is truly a dragon to be found. They've traveled all the way from the southwest to the northeast. If there's a dragon, they can at least brag about it. If not, this is just pure torture. One can't really blame Xiuxing and Wenkai for grumbling, as this entire situation is a bit absurd. They were perfectly fine back home, helping people with feng shui. They were content earning a little money, hoping for nothing more than to save up for a house and a wife. But their master, having heard a rumor that a dragon tribulation was occurring in Inko town, seemed to lose his mind, ordering them to pack immediately. They traveled from the far southwest to the deep northeast, a journey not of hundreds, but thousands of miles. They haven't eaten or slept well for weeks, traveling day and night and burning through divine speed talismans just to reach the northeast in a single month. If the news turns out to be fake, the pair can't imagine how devastated they'll be. Yet, deep down, there is a flicker of hope. To witness a dragon tribulation would be the honor of a lifetime, something to brag about forever. Uncle Gio ignores their constant grumbling. He knows he acted impulsively, but the significance of this event is unparalleled. After all, we are talking about a dragon. Throughout history, how many have been lucky enough to see one? For Taoist disciples, the dragon holds a truly sacred meaning. From ancient emperors ascending as dragons to Master Su Sun slaying one to reach immortality, the creature represents the ultimate opportunity. And it isn't just Uncle Gio. This news has swept through the entire cultivation world, causing a massive stir among the great sects. From Longhu Mountain to Wudong and Amei, even Buddhist monks and shamanic practitioners are all converging on Inko Town. With the entire cultivation world in an uproar, the news couldn't possibly be fake. Uncle Gio offers a brief, dry word of comfort. He tells them to stop talking and find a place to rest in town until their fellow senior uncles arrive to decide their next move. Since the stakes are so high, the Maoshan sect has sent reinforcements. Uncle Gio knows he cannot handle this monumental task alone. Qiuxing and Wenkai understand the gravity of the situation, and they are just as curious to see if a dragon truly exists. Otherwise, they would have faked an illness long ago rather than trekking 10,000 miles. Looking at the worsening weather, they hesitate. They ask their master if they should seek shelter from the heavy rain ahead. Uncle Gio simply points toward the darkened sky. He begins to explain the celestial signs to his confused disciples. Qiuxing asks if the dragon is in the sky, as he sees nothing. Wenkai shakes his head like a rattle. He sees only clouds. He sees thick clouds and flashes of lightning, but no dragon. This is natural, as the dragon is currently hidden within the storm. Ordinary people, of course, cannot see it. Otherwise, it wouldn't just be Taoists, monks, and warlords gathering here. Even the imperial court would have sent an army. However, if that dragon fails its tribulation and falls from the sky, it will cause a global sensation that no one will be able to hide. This means their window of opportunity is incredibly short. They must defeat the others and seize this chance before the authorities can even react. Uncle Gio knows this is a once-in-a-millennium opportunity, so the three of them quickly don their straw raincoats and hats to push toward Inko Town. The rain is simply overwhelming, as if a river in the heavens has burst its banks, with sheets of water blurring the very path before them. After walking for a short while, we see several figures emerging through the mist. It seems they aren't the only ones traveling in this downpour. Some of these strangers are dressed in traditional straw raincoats, while others are clad in thick, dark robes that seem to defy the soaking wet weather. Since the dragon's tribulation hasn't truly begun, no one wants to start a fight yet and risk missing out on the heavenly opportunity to come. The arrival of Uncle Gio and his disciples immediately draws several sharp gazes. Why are so many people standing in the street during a storm? Is this a local custom? Excuse us, but could you tell us where the nearest inn is? Qiuxing and Wenkai ask, completely oblivious to the tension. They assume these figures are just local villagers. One man holding an oil paper umbrella frowns, ready to scold them, when his companion stops him. The companion recognizes Uncle Gio's face and hurries over to whisper a warning. The man with the umbrella pales and gives Uncle Gio a long, deep look. To everyone's surprise, he actually steps aside to clear the path. The onlookers are baffled that such a man would yield so easily. They begin to re-examine the trio, and a wave of realization hits them. It is Ling Gio of the Maoshan sect. This just made things much more complicated. Word of Uncle Gio's arrival spreads through Inko Town like wildfire, causing quite a stir among the gathered cultivators. In the world of cultivation, everyone knows the top talents of the major sects, and Maoshan is famous for producing several legendary figures. Their eldest senior brother is a master of lightning arts known as the Lightning Lord, while the second senior brother, Ling Gio, is a bit more mysterious. Though he lacks a single flashy specialty, he is a polymath, mastering every Taoist art and talisman with ease, a true all-rounder, we might say. In any other situation, people might approach him for a friendly chat, but here, they are all rivals for the same divine prize. With another genius entering the fray, the difficulty level has skyrocketed, and many worry that if Uncle Gio is here, other Maoshan disciples might follow. If the other senior brothers arrive in time, they could become everyone's greatest threat. Uncle Gio's expression is heavy. He can see at a glance that these people are far from simple. This mission is truly dangerous, and even he must proceed with caution as he leads his two disciples forward to find a place to rest. Suddenly, Wenkai points at two figures ahead and lets out a sudden, mocking laugh. He asks his master why someone would wear a red bridal veil instead of a raincoat, and why the person beside them is carrying a giant bone. Uncle Gio's face pales as he quickly covers his disciple's mouth, sternly warning him to stay silent. Those are the shamanic mediums of the Northeast. They are the Dima and Air's hen, and one must be careful not to invite disaster. There is a saying, Southern Mao and Northern Ma. While Mao refers to Mao Shan, Ma refers to these shamanic practitioners who possess formidable strength and are backed by powerful spirit immortals. Uncle Gio knows how dangerous they are, especially since even a powerful dragon shouldn't provoke a local snake on its own turf. Worse yet, he realizes his two disciples are essentially walking magnets for trouble. Fortunately, they find a vacant room at an inn and quickly settle in to order a meal. Seeing the food, Qiuxing and Wenkai finally shut their mouths. They begin to eat heartily. To be honest, being in the Northeast has its perks. The portions are massive, with one dish equaling 3 servings back south. Having barely eaten well for a month, they naturally intend to make the most of this rare visit to a restaurant. As for the bill, well, they'll leave that headache for their master. Watching them gorge themselves, Uncle Gio finds himself swallowing hard. It wasn't just the boys who were exhausted. He had spent the month constantly drawing talismans to replenish their energy. He can't resist any longer and joins the feast. The onlookers watch the trio and shake their heads in quiet mockery, thinking that for a Maoshan master, he certainly lacks refinement. Unintentionally, this causes the rivals to lower their guard, viewing them as no real threat. The trio couldn't care less. They paid for the food and will eat it however they please, only with a full stomach. Will they have the strength to seize the coming opportunity? They even plan to sleep well afterward, as this divine prize is simply too precious. A dragon is a literal treasure trove. From its liver to its scales, these are materials so rare that even immortals might never get to touch them. Even the dragon's flesh and blood are incredibly precious. Consuming them can extend one's life or even restore youth. For these practitioners, it means their cultivation levels could skyrocket. Unfortunately, this event has caused such a massive stir that it has alerted all of China, drawing countless seekers from every corner of the land to fight for it. Even various demons and ghosts have already begun to arrive in secret. We see the town of Inko becoming a powder keg. People gather in small groups, standing by windows, lingering in doorways, or simply waiting out in the middle of the streets with their heads tilted toward the sky. Everyone is waiting for the same thing, poised to strike. Some weaker practitioners, unable to endure such immense pressure, have already used the heavy rain as cover to slip away. Yet, more people keep arriving, especially disciples from the major sects. They have begun to congregate, realizing this opportunity is too vast for anyone to monopolize. Cooperation is their best bet to secure the greatest profit. Even the rogue cultivators are starting to form gangs and seek out familiar faces for protection. One can only imagine what kind of chaos is about to erupt, or how much blood will be spilled. But it doesn't matter. The rain will wash away all traces. A general success is built on 10,000 rotting bones. Cultivation has never been a peaceful path, especially in a world already this chaotic. In Inko, many old enemies have crossed paths, yet no fights have broken out. Everyone is exercising forced restraint, terrified of being forced to exit the stage early and losing this divine chance. Meanwhile, our protagonist remains blissfully unaware of this tension. He simply wanders through various mass graves, consuming ghosts to fuel his cultivation. This era is truly a mess. Mass graves appear one after another, filled with piles of the dead. There are beheaded bandits and outlaws, but most are just ordinary people. To be honest, this presents a bit of a problem for him. These commoners suffered so much in life that even in death, they don't know how to resist. They rarely become vengeful spirits, leaving him with nothing to devour. After visiting 3 different sites, he has only found 4 evil ghosts, a meager harvest indeed. Fortunately, there is still plenty of energy and malice in the air to refine. This finally allows his cultivation to break through to the 3rd level of the demon soldier rank. He feels a bit frustrated, though he has grown stronger. In reality, he doesn't realize his progress is incredibly fast. While ordinary monsters take years to advance, he has jumped 2 levels in days. Furthermore, he practices the demon yellow fern technique, making his demonic power exceptionally pure. He is far beyond any ordinary monster found in these graves. The quality of the and malice in these graves is simply too poor, making his conversion efficiency frustratingly low. This is why his progress feels so slow. We can't really blame him, though. He has just started his journey and has never met another monster to compare himself to. He has no idea how powerful he truly is. He looks at the sky, feeling a bit conflicted. He knows of several other mass graves that, if consumed, could likely push his cultivation up another level or 2. However, those locations are a bit further away. He worries that if the dragon's tribulation fails while he is gone, he might miss his chance. A few days won't hurt. He decides it is better to remain quiet and wait patiently for this opportunity to conclude before traveling elsewhere. Having made up his mind, we see him move. His massive body slithers back into the mountain forests, where he settles in to wait for the moment the tribulation fails. Time continues to slip away. The sky grows brighter and the pressure more terrifying until a sudden, massive thunderclap jolts the entire town of Inko awake. Dark shadows begin to move, In the blink of an eye, the streets are crowded, and even the wilderness outside the town is filled with figures. Every single person is doing the exact same thing. They stand with heads tilted back, watching the Jiao dragon facing its trial. Thunder roars and lightning illuminates the night sky, revealing a sea of faces. The light reflects off countless eyes filled with pure greed. Everyone understands that if the Jiao succeeds, a true dragon will be born into the land of China. Such an event would be monumental. The mere presence of a dragon might stir the spirits of a numb populace and lead the nation toward a new awakening. But, to be honest, the crowd hopes for the Jiao to fail. Only through its failure can they claim the prizes they covet, even if it's just a small boost in power. Some seek a single extra year of life, and a few sorcerers have even begun casting curses to ensure a disaster. They want that dragon to fall by any means necessary. The Jiao hovers in the air, seemingly unaware of the thousands below praying for its death. Or perhaps it knows and simply doesn't care. It has other concerns. It stares at the gathering lightning with eyes full of madness and excitement. If it survives this, it will finally become a true dragon. Then, the sky explodes. A dragon's roar and a thunderclap erupt simultaneously as a bolt of lightning tears through the dark clouds, striking downward with savage, unrelenting force. The Jiao shows no fear, swinging its massive claws to literally shred the lightning bolt to pieces. The display of power leaves the onlookers breathless. They knew this creature was special, but they didn't expect such terrifying strength. This isn't ordinary lightning. It is a heavenly tribulation, hundreds of times stronger. Yet, the Jiao tore it apart as if it were nothing. Its power far exceeds their imagination. No wonder it could attempt the transformation. Some begin to panic. If the Jiao actually succeeds, they will lose everything. Only our protagonist watches with eyes full of sorrow, for he already knows how this story ends. He knows that no matter how desperately this Jiao struggles, its fate is sealed. Sure enough, the tribulation clouds gather once more, drawing endless lightning from every direction. The power this time is even greater, with an offensive so terrifying it seems to shatter the void and make the very heavens tremble as endless bolts of light erupt. The intensity grows, relentlessly striking the Jiao. The power is so immense that even the people on the ground feel it, and they quickly fall into a state of total panic. They wonder if this is the legendary heavenly tribulation. It is far too terrifying. They question if anyone could truly survive this to become an immortal or a god. The bodies of some cultivators begin to tremble, and they instinctively want to kneel and beg the heavens for mercy. To be honest, they are completely overwhelmed. They know their own sects claim that ancient masters achieved immortality, but watching this horror, they begin to doubt. Such a tribulation seems impossible to overcome. Even a true deity would find it difficult to withstand this force. So how could a mere mortal? Uncle Joe cannot help but let out a heavy, sorrowful sigh. Though he seeks his own opportunity, he truly wanted to see a real dragon return to the world. Now, it seems that chance is slipping away forever. Meanwhile, a golden light of greed flashes in the eyes of other cultivators. If they could master even a fraction of this power, they would be unstoppable in the world. Since the tribulation manifests as lightning, they realize that lightning arts must be the most powerful path. This thought causes them to glance toward the Maoshan group. They feel lucky that the legendary Lightning Lord isn't here, or they would face a formidable rival. Suddenly, another massive bolt of lightning tears across the sky. It strikes directly at the Jiao with such overwhelming force that the creature's entire body is completely enveloped in a blinding, electric shroud. Bolt after bolt explodes against its skin, attacking every inch of its frame. The Jiao finally begins to feel true, agonizing pain as the power intensifies. No matter how it struggles or how loudly it roars toward the sky, it is all in vain. Finally, unable to bear the weight of the lightning, its body begins to rupture. Flesh and blood fly through the air as the creature is finally wounded. Drops of blood and broken scales begin to rain down from the heavens like falling stars. Seeing the Jiao wounded, the crowd lets out a cheer. They have waited so long to see it fail, hoping to scavenge the remains for their own gain. But then, something even more shocking happens. The falling blood isn't just red. It is shot through with streaks of shimmering, dark gold. The Jiao was already transforming. That isn't just monster blood, it is the blood of a dragon. To the greedy onlookers, this is the ultimate prize. A roar of excitement erupts inside and outside Inko as everyone begins to move, desperately rushing toward the various spots where the blood is falling. A flash of sorrow crosses Uncle Joe's eyes, but he knows this is no time for sentiment. He immediately pulls out 3 divine speed talismans to join the hunt. He slaps the talismans onto himself and his 2 disciples, and in an instant, the 3 of them vanish into a blur of afterimages. The other Maoshan disciples follow suit immediately. They aren't the only ones moving, of course. Every cultivator here is unleashing their own divine speed techniques, using everything from wind-walking charms to enchanted boots to keep pace. We see a chaotic charge as everyone pushes themselves to their absolute limit. Suddenly, more figures begin to emerge from the dense woods and dark caves surrounding the area. Foxes, weasels, and even rats, all of them transformed spirits, scramble toward the falling dragon blood. It seems that nature itself is hungry for a taste of divinity. When a miracle of this magnitude falls from the sky, it isn't just for humanity. The monsters and demons have been waiting in the shadows for a very long time. A rat demon proves to be the fastest, leaping high into the air to intercept a single, shimmering drop of blood. But the competition is far more ruthless than it anticipated. In a heartbeat, dozens of magical attacks explode around it. Fireballs, lightning, and flying swords all strike at once. The rat demon is obliterated before it can even touch the prize. Its body is torn into fragments, leaving nothing behind. The sight gives the others a momentary pause. But with such a heavenly opportunity before them, who could truly control themselves? As soon as the rat demon falls, a Taoist priest lunges forward, opening his mouth wide to finally swallow that precious drop of dragon blood. He succeeded, it seems. Immediately, a massive fireball slams into him, resulting in a violent explosion. But as the smoke clears, we see something truly remarkable happening to the man. His clothes are scorched away, yet his skin remains completely untouched. Just one drop of that blood has granted him a staggering immunity to common magical attacks. He no longer fears simple fire. He laughs, shouting that this is his destiny, that the legendary dragon blood is every bit as powerful as the stories claimed. His celebration is cut short by a blood-curdling scream. He looks down instinctively, only to find a cold blade protruding directly through his chest. To be honest, he should have kept moving. A bearded warrior sneers as he pulls his blade back, cursing the waste of a perfectly good drop of blood. Without a hint of remorse, he swings his sword again to finish the job. He plans to carve the man open. Since the blood was just swallowed, it hasn't been fully absorbed yet. In his eyes, even a fresh corpse can be refined into something useful. The jiao is massive, but there are simply too many people here to share. To these greedy souls, not a single scrap of the creature can be allowed to go to waste. The bearded man regrets that he lacks the power to kill everyone else on the spot. If he could, every drop of blood and every scale would belong solely to him. But he knows that killing enough people will at least reduce the competition. Now, the crowd has descended into a frenzy, some fighting for the blood, others simply killing for sport. Old rivalries that were barely contained are now exploding into violence. With such treasures at stake, no one is willing to show even a shred of restraint anymore. The battle reaches a fever pitch as everyone falls into a state of madness. High above, the jiao is gravely wounded, its essence continuing to spill across the sky. Many droplets of the dragon's blood are struck by lightning and vanish instantly, yet some remnants survive, falling toward the earth as they are swept away by the storm. The wind carries them in every direction, and as luck would have it, a single drop falls directly toward our protagonist's hiding spot. It seems destiny is flying straight toward him. He doesn't hesitate for a second. His massive form springs forward, and with one swift motion, he swallows the dragon blood whole. Immediately, the essence explodes within his stomach. A majestic and indescribable power erupts, a violent force like a churning sea or a volcanic eruption, spreading rapidly through every inch of his body. The heat is terrifying, making him feel as though his entire serpentine form is about to melt or be torn apart from the inside out. The sheer force of the impact sends his massive body flying, crashing heavily into the mountain forest, snapping trees like twigs and crushing solid rock beneath his weight. He carves deep furrows into the earth as he skids, but fortunately, having already survived a perfect evolution once before, he finds this agony, while horrific, to be manageable. He quickly regains control, forcing himself to refine that drop of blood. Upon his black scales, shimmering streaks of gold and red patterns begin to emerge. A surging power flows through him continuously, leaving him feeling more robust and formidable than ever before. To be honest, he feels practically unstoppable now. His scales harden, and his aura climbs at a staggering speed as his cultivation grows stronger. In the blink of an eye, he successfully breaks through to the 4th level of the Demon Soldier realm. But we see that the process is far from over. Even though that drop of blood was damaged by the lightning, it still contains an immense amount of raw energy. His cultivation continues its rapid ascent, soaring through the 5th, 6th, 7th, and finally the 8th level of the Demon Soldier realm. He has broken through 5 entire realms in a single moment. He can only stare in shock, his eyes wide with a mixture of disbelief and pure, unadulterated joy. Consider the effort it took before. He had to devour several evil ghosts and drain the energy of multiple burial grounds just to reach the 3rd level. And yet, here we are. All of this came from just one drop of blood. Even if it only came from a jiao, a lesser dragon, the results are undeniable. The power of a dragon, even an incomplete one, is something truly beyond ordinary comprehension. Suddenly, his train of thought is interrupted by a system notification. When he devoured those ghosts earlier, he only gained a meager amount of points. Back then it was a mere 100 points, but now he has gained a staggering 20,000. It's almost too incredible to believe, but the reality is right before him. More importantly, his next evolution only requires 10,000 points. Since he has 20,000, he has already doubled the requirement for his next transformation. Sure enough, the system prompt pops up right on time, asking if he wishes to begin the evolution process. Naturally, the answer is a resounding yes. The infinite evolution system can devour the essence of all living beings to create evolution points, and the power contained within dragon blood is, naturally, immense. He thought it would take a long time to trigger another evolution, but success came sooner than expected. Without a moment's hesitation, he makes his choice. As the evolution begins, a majestic and overwhelming force surges forward, instantly rushing through his entire body with the strength of a tidal wave. The energy submerges him completely, causing his form to expand rapidly. For a brief second, he feels a piercing, heart-wrenching pain, but then something changes. That agonizing sensation vanishes without a trace, replaced by a wave of intense comfort. We see that he can clearly feel his physical form growing stronger. His body is enlarging at a staggering speed. His old skin, unable to contain this new power, stretches until it bursts and turns to ash. He completes his third molting with ease. At this moment, his body has grown to 3 times its original size, reaching dozens of meters in length. Those black scales have become deeper and more profound, with a faint gold and red shimmer appearing on the edges, making him look truly extraordinary. His 2 fangs have grown sharper and longer, giving him a ferocious appearance radiating killing intent. Wisps of black mist begin to drift from his body. As the mist touches the surrounding plants and trees, they wither and turn to ash instantly. It seems his new form is incredibly poisonous. This transformation doesn't last long. After a few seconds, the churning black mist dissipates. Suddenly, strange visions of a mysterious fog fill his mind. It appears he has gained insight into several new spells. He quickly calms his excitement to check his updated status within the system. His lineage is now the Black Spirit Python, and he has reached the realm of a first-level demon artisan, practicing the Demon Yellow technique. His new spells include Nightmare, Earth Form, and Poison Breath, with 10,500 evolution points remaining for his future growth. Nightmare is one of the 72 earthly arts, an illusion spell. Once cast, it can be used to completely deceive and confuse his enemies. Those caught in it feel as if they've fallen into a living nightmare, unable to tell truth from lies. It lacks direct offensive power, but it is extremely practical. This is especially true for him, since he will eventually have to deal with humans. A giant snake body is, to be honest, a bit inconvenient. With the Nightmare spell, he can take human form, enter dreams like a spirit deity, or even disguise himself as a true dragon to intimidate others. Earth Form is another of the 72 earthly arts, also known as Earth Escape. It allows him to dive into the ground and travel 1,000 miles a day. This spell is perhaps even more useful, whether for tracking enemies or dodging attacks. After all, as a snake demon, he doesn't exactly have legs. Moving around used to be quite a hassle, but with the Earth Form technique now at his disposal, everything changes. As long as there is soil, he can submerge himself to seize opportunities. He also gained Poison Breath, not an earthly art, but a racial talent. It is a simple, yet deadly ability, releasing a potent toxin that can dissolve any living being into a puddle in moments. This poison is so terrifying it can even harm ghosts. Looking at his 3 new spells, he realizes that having a strong foundation truly makes a difference. Normally, humans must train rigorously to master new spells, but monsters are different. They possess what is known as bloodline inheritance. While common monsters rely only on instinct, those with powerful lineages carry vast inheritances within their blood, much like the legendary Golden Crow. The Golden Crow is born mastering the true solar fire, a fact of life that others simply have to accept. As a Black Spirit Python, he now shares that ease. If his foundation improves again, mastering even stronger spells will become effortless. Compared to his former self, he is now worlds apart. His strength has increased tenfold. He hadn't expected to reach his 3rd evolution so quickly, and to be honest, it was surprisingly easy. He reached the requirements with ease and even has over 10,000 evolution points left over. This is the true power of evolution. Evolution is clearly the only path forward. Although the next stage requires a staggering 100,000 points, he isn't worried. A single drop of dragon blood provided 20,000 points. This means if he can snatch just 5 more drops, he can evolve once again. He looks up at the sky, his eyes shimmering with excitement. His destiny is right there, contained within those falling drops of dragon blood. Unable to restrain himself, he leaps forward and activates Earth Form. His body vanishes into the soil, moving through the earth as easily as a fish in water. He enters the fray to claim his prize. Meanwhile, the entire town of Inko has descended into absolute chaos as everyone begins to fight. After days of tense standoff, the battle has finally erupted, and many have already fallen. Bodies lie scattered in the mud. Blood mixes with the falling rain, spreading in every direction. Amidst the carnage, Qiuxing and Wenkai decide they want the dragon blood too. However, the moment they rush out, they are met with a barrage of attacks. Their faces turn pale with terror as they cry out for their master. Fortunately, Uncle Gio is nearby and quickly pulls them from danger. Seeing the brutal scene, he realizes the crowd has lost all reason. He shouts for his fellow disciples to gather so they can seize the opportunity together. Hearing his call, the Maoshan disciples quickly begin to assemble. They gather with the utmost speed. Though their individual strength is high, they dare not linger in this chaos, lest they be struck by a stray shot from the shadows. To die without knowing who struck the blow would be a tragedy. Seeing the Maoshan disciples move, others react quickly, shouting for the Longhu Mountain disciples to assemble. The Chuanjin disciples are urged to gather immediately. Meanwhile, the Shunshao sect declares this territory theirs, warning that no one else may approach as the various sects unite. As the sects form ranks, the rogue cultivators also begin to huddle together. Even the monsters and ghosts start seeking partners, a rare sight, to be sure. They have no choice. 2 fists are no match for 4 hands. No matter how strong an individual is, falling into an ambush means certain disaster. The fox spirits and weasels, those local immortal families, use their knowledge of the land to find local shamans to partner with. It is the out-of-town monsters who find themselves in a difficult spot. Yet, with such a massive opportunity before them, no one is willing to give up. The dragon is severely wounded, shedding many scales and drops of precious blood. However, the lightning tribulation in the sky is so terrifying that much of the blood and scales are destroyed by bolts before they even hit the ground. And with so many people below, very few actually succeed in snatching any dragon blood. Some humans and monsters fight so desperately that they refuse to yield an inch, causing several drops of blood to fall directly onto the ground, dissolving into the rain and soaking into the mud. Even so, the crowd refuses to quit, and they begin digging up the earth to collect the soil. A few monsters even start eating the dirt right then and there. After all, soil stained with dragon blood is still a treasure, and who are we to judge their methods? Another drop of dragon blood, mixed with the falling rain, descends from the heavens. It catches the attention of several cultivators and a group of monsters who all rush forward. A Taoist priest, brandishing a precious sword and stepping with spiritual grace, tells the monsters to get lost. He isn't about to let mere beasts steal his destiny. He throws out a handful of talismans, which erupt into whistling fireballs that fly toward the monsters. The creatures scatter in fear, but one fox spirit is too slow to dodge. She is instantly engulfed in flames and dies a miserable death. The Taoist sneers, preparing to claim the blood, when suddenly, the ground shatters. A dark shadow bursts from beneath the earth and bites the Taoist's neck with a sickening crunch. It is a swift and brutal reversal. Blood sprays everywhere. The Taoist tries to cover his throat, but he cannot stop the flow and soon dies on the spot. But the snake monster who killed him has no time to escape. A flurry of blades and swords descends upon it, hacking the creature into several pieces in an instant. Then, a chilling wind blows through. Several evil ghosts join forces and charge toward the dragon blood. They may be spirits, but dragon blood is a true treasure that could change everything for them. If they can refine it, they might reverse the laws of yin and yang, reshaping their flesh and even returning to life. No one wants to miss such a chance, but the cost is high. Suddenly, the eerie sound of copper bells rings out across the battlefield as several black-robed, evil cultivators make their move. The ghosts don't even manage to reach the dragon blood. Before they are intercepted, the chaos nearby only intensifies as everyone begins to see red, losing themselves to the violence. Whether they are human cultivators or monstrous spirits, they have all fallen into a state of absolute madness. To be honest, it was only a matter of time. In this frenzy, it is a simple matter of killing or being killed. Although the torrential rain continues to pour, it cannot wash away the blood fast enough. The mud is stained a deep crimson, as if the entire town of Inko is being repainted in red. Fortunately, the dragon blood carries a dark golden hue. Otherwise, the crowd wouldn't even be able to tell if they were fighting over dragon blood or human blood. Just then, a cheer erupts from not far away. I got a whole scale. Every eye is instantly drawn to the source of the shout. We see the dragon in the sky, battered by heavenly lightning, its scales shattered and falling like rain. Most have been fighting over tiny fragments, but this monk is actually holding a complete scale the size of a palm. It is a prize beyond measure. In a heartbeat, the eyes of every human and monster turn bloodshot as they lunge toward the monk. Another massive melee breaks out instantly. The monk barely enjoys his prize for 3 breaths before he is killed on the spot. Now, no one can even tell who holds the scale anymore. They only know that if they kill everyone else, the scale will eventually be theirs. The entirety of Inko has descended into a madhouse where logic has no place. Even the disciples of the prestigious righteous sects, who tried to maintain their composure at first, find themselves infected by the surrounding insanity. They too begin to slaughter. We see a Taoist whose head is sliced clean off, rolling through the muddy water like a ball, his eyes still wide with shock. Immediately after, a tiger demon roars and leaps forward, crushing that head underfoot. He doesn't care about the mess. He is already focused on his next meal. The demon bites into another Taoist, tossing him back and swallowing him whole. The sickening sound of crunching bone and tearing flesh marks the end of the man's screams. It seems the tiger demon has swallowed the dragon blood along with the Taoist. He roars at the sky, his body surging with a mix of agonizing pain and raw power. In an instant, his physical form swells to more than twice its original size. This massive tiger has become as large as an elephant, a true terror on the field. He charges through the battlefield, and neither man nor monster dares to stand in his way. They scatter in fear, which, naturally, is the only sensible reaction. But his dominance doesn't last long. A group of survivors quickly rallies, unleashing a barrage of spells and magical treasures to surround him. While dragon scales are rare, this tiger demon has become a treasure in his own right, his very bones and fur now infused with the dragon's essence. A single drop of dragon blood is worth a fortune. Since they can't reach the dragon itself, they are determined to seize the tiger demon's corpse. Suddenly, the tiger finds himself in a bitter struggle. He has certainly grown stronger, but there simply hasn't been enough time to refine the dragon's essence. To make matters worse, he is being swarmed by an overwhelming number of powerful attackers. The tiger quickly falls into a disadvantage. Nearby, a sharp, cunning cry rings out as a fox demon takes advantage of the chaos to snatch a drop of dragon blood for herself. As she swallows it, her crimson fur stands on end and her blood begins to boil. Right before our eyes, 2 additional tails sprout from her back. She has transformed into a 3-tailed fox. These creatures are quite peculiar. Legends say their ancestors were divine beasts. Those 3 tails don't just represent her level of cultivation. They also represent 3 lives. In a chaotic meat grinder like this battlefield, having extra lives is the best way to ensure one's survival, which is a rather practical advantage, all things considered. It saves her from the fate of that rat demon, who secured the blood but didn't live to enjoy it. This clever fox immediately dives into the thicket to hide the moment she swallows the prize. However, she is either too slow or the battlefield is simply too crowded. There are frenzied looters everywhere, and no movement goes unnoticed for long. Despite her stealth, several cultivators spot her and give chase. Even a few malevolent ghosts drift after her, joining the hunt for the 3-tailed fox. On a small nearby slope, our protagonist watches the slaughter and can't help but sigh. In his past life, after all, he was just an ordinary human. Even though he has become a snake demon, he has mostly fought lonely ghosts. He has never seen a scene of such visceral, bloody carnage. It is truly quite a lot to take in. The cruelty of it makes him shake his head in disbelief. He realizes how lucky he was that no one saw him claim his own drop of blood earlier, or he would be the one being swarmed. No matter how strong he is, he couldn't fight them all at once. But he sees an opportunity here. With the crowd distracted, he can move to seize more dragon blood and spirit energy. Just then, another drop of dragon blood falls toward his position. He lunges forward, only to see another figure rushing out from the opposite side. It is a weasel demon, a Huangxian. Both figures race toward the falling blood, neither one willing to back down or give an inch of ground. The Huangxian is momentarily startled to see such a massive snake demon. However, he quickly regains his composure. He has never seen this particular snake before. Sensing no overwhelming demonic aura, he assumes the snake is just an impressive-looking weakling. The Huangxian suddenly shifts his weight and plants his feet firmly. He stands upright like a human, folding his hands in a mock gesture of respect, and addresses the snake as a mere junior of the Lu family. Nearby observers recognize the Huangxian and stop in their tracks, their expressions shifting to pure dread. That fellow is a notorious demon from Great Black Mountain, a rank 8 soldier. His strength is terrifying and his methods are notoriously cruel. He has claimed many lives, and it seems our snake demon has just run into a very big problem. Is the dragon blood really about to be snatched away by him? The faces of the humans and demons nearby are pale, filled with fear and a deep, bitter sense of frustration. Most of all, they feel a stinging resentment. They know the Huangxian is powerful, but since they dared to come for the blood, they had already prepared themselves for the worst. They begin to circulate their spiritual power in secret, waiting for the Huangxian to engage our snake demon so they can strike from the shadows. The weasel, meanwhile, remains cautious. His earlier question was actually quite calculated. It's a ritual known as seeking a name. When a weasel demon reaches a certain level, they encounter a unique spiritual bottleneck. They must ask a human for a blessing to transcend their beastly form. While this Huangxian hasn't reached the stage of true transformation yet, he can still use the ritual. By seeking a name, he can temporarily boost his combat strength. It's a clever trick, really, because no matter how the enemy answers, the ritual grants him power. The Huangxian prepares to seize the dragon blood, asking once more with a sneer, "Do I look like a man to you, or a god?" But suddenly, the situation takes a sharp turn. What kind of trash dares to play tricks in front of me? Die. Our protagonist has no interest in listening to a weasel's nonsense. He leaps forward, jaws wide, and ready to strike. Fine, you've chosen death. The Huangxian laughs instead of getting angry. One can stay silent to avoid the ritual, but once an opponent speaks, no matter the words, the power is sealed. A mysterious force suddenly surges into the Huangxian's body, causing his strength to skyrocket. We see his aura swell until he reaches the very peak of the soldier rank. He feels certain of his victory now. No matter how strange this snake demon might be, he believes he is no longer a match. To be honest, the weasel seems a bit overexcited. He begins to hop and skip in place, occasionally kneeling and bowing as if performing a bizarre dance, or perhaps he's mockingly begging for mercy. Then, the air turns cold. A ghostly wind rises out of nowhere, transforming into a cloud of black mist that begins to envelop our protagonist. Wherever this mist touches, the grass and small trees wither instantly. It is clearly a lethal poison. If the snake continues his charge, he will surely be infected, but if he retreats, the weasel will have the opening he needs to escape. Yet, the massive snake doesn't slow down, his jaws still aimed at the Huang Xian, as if he won't rest until he's swallowed him whole. The onlookers are genuinely shocked. They think the snake demon is being incredibly foolish, all brawn and no brains. If he dies here, the dragon blood will fall right into the Huang Xian's greedy paws. The cultivators had planned to wait for a long, exhausting battle so they could swoop in and clean up the remains. They never expected such a reckless, head-on collision. Even though the black mist is clearly dangerous, the snake doesn't even try to dodge. We have to wonder, is he truly that reckless, or does he have a hidden trump card? In the blink of an eye, he plunges into the poison. With a sudden, violent whip of his massive tail, a howling gale rises, and the black mist is simply blown away. He shows no signs of being poisoned at all. In fact, he looks even more ferocious than before. What? The Huang Xian cries out, his pupils shrinking in pure terror. The Huang Xian is baffled. After his power boost, even the strongest foe should have reacted to his poison. He wonders what is wrong with this snake. Could he truly be immune? But there is no time for deep thought, as those bloody, massive jaws are already inches away. He scrambles on all fours, desperately trying to flee as a loud crack echoes. The weasel narrowly avoids the charge, but a massive tree behind him isn't so lucky. Unable to withstand the terrifying force of our protagonist, the trunk shatters instantly. The tree begins to collapse, and the crowd of onlookers panics, shouting for everyone to get out of the way. They scramble backward to avoid being crushed, but before they can get very far, they witness a truly bizarre sight. The massive crown of the tree doesn't actually hit the ground. Instead, it seems as though a giant hand has caught it in midair. The tree sweeps across the clearing like a colossal club, relentlessly pursuing the Huang Xian. It turns out our snake has coiled around the trunk, using the entire tree as a weapon. The weasel turns pale with fright, his instincts screaming at him to run. However, the tree's canopy is simply too vast. No matter which way he darts, he cannot escape the range. He can only watch in horror as the branches and leaves expand rapidly in his vision. With a thunderous boom, the tree sweeps through the battlefield, clearing everything in its path. A sudden void appears in the center of the clearing as humans and demons alike scramble to create distance. Those who aren't fast enough to escape the arc find themselves swatted away like mere flies. The Huang Xian, being the primary target of this improvised club, fares much worse as he is slammed violently against a jagged rock. Blood sprays from his mouth, and he feels as though every bone in his body has been pulverized. A deathly silence falls over the area as everyone stares in utter disbelief. They can hardly process what they've just seen. The Huang Xian is famous in these parts for his strength, and everyone assumed our snake wouldn't stand a chance. Yet, the moment the fight truly began, the weasel was the one left broken and battered. They wonder where this snake came from and how he could possibly be this powerful. Even the Huang Xian is starting to feel a twinge of regret. He thought he had been so cautious, but he clearly underestimated the monster standing before him. To be honest, his pride is hurting just as much as his shattered ribs. Forcing his broken body to stand once more, the Huang Xian glares at our protagonist and snarls, demanding to know which sect or lineage he belongs to. He shouts that there is plenty of dragon blood to go around, asking why the snake is picking a fight with him. He warns that this could spark a war between the 5 great families. While the fox, weasel, hedgehog, snake, and rat families aren't exactly close, they are all known as the guardian immortals of the Northeast. They fight internally, but they usually unite against outsiders. Since the dragon is ascending on their turf, the 5 families had already agreed to work together to drive away any foreign intruders. And now, it seems our protagonist has just made himself the primary target of that ancient alliance. Our protagonist lets out a cold hiss, wondering why the weasel doesn't just step aside then. Huang Xian's expression shifts instantly, forcing a strained smile as he asks if our snake is a disciple of the Lu family. He claims that since they are practically on the same side, he is willing to let the snake have this drop of dragon blood. As he speaks, he begins to hunch his body, cautiously taking one step back at a time. His eyes remain locked on our protagonist, clearly terrified that the snake might decide to finish him off right then and there. We see the snake watch this display with a hint of genuine surprise. This weasel hasn't even taken human form yet, but he has certainly mastered the art of human deception. To be honest, our snake truly wants to kill Huang Xian and devour his essence. It would surely provide a massive boost. He knows that consuming such a powerful demon would grant him a significant amount of spiritual energy. With a sudden flick of his tail, the weasel turns and dives into the tall grass, vanishing from sight in an instant. However, he doesn't retreat very far. He knows that with the immense allure of dragon blood right in front of them, no one is truly going to give up and walk away. Just as Huang Xian flees, a thunderous roar echoes from the hilltop. A massive gray wolf suddenly leaps into the clearing, charging at full speed toward the dragon blood. The beast intends to seize this rare opportunity while everyone is distracted, but our protagonist is far too alert to let anyone snatch the prize so easily. With a powerful twist of his massive body, he swings the uprooted tree once again, slamming it heavily into the charging wolf and successfully driving the beast back. But a series of sharp cracks begins to echo through the battlefield. After all, a tree is not a proper weapon, and it has its limits. Having swatted away the Huang Xian and now striking the wolf, the trunk finally gives way. It shatters completely, sending branches and leaves flying in every direction. This collapse seems to act as a signal for the other demons and monsters. They all begin to move at once, charging toward our protagonist in a coordinated swarm. They have witnessed his strength and realize that if they don't deal with this snake demon first, none of them will get a taste of the dragon blood. They intend to overwhelm him with numbers. Yet, facing this tide of enemies, our snake doesn't show even a hint of panic. With his system upgrades and the Demon Emperor technique, he has already reached the realm of a demon master. If he couldn't handle a few low-level scavengers, his dreams of ascending to dragonhood would be nothing but a fantasy. He takes a deep breath and suddenly spits out a concentrated stream of venom. The monsters are startled by this sudden chemical warfare and scramble to get out of the way. Unfortunately for some, they aren't nearly fast enough to avoid the spray. The venom is terrifyingly potent. The flesh of those it touches begins to hiss and dissolve instantly. In the span of a single breath, several monsters fall dead. Where they once stood, nothing remains on the scorched earth but a few bubbling pools of dark liquid. The thick, corrosive sludge serves as a grim warning to anyone else thinking of testing their luck. To be honest, these few low-level monsters aren't much of a challenge for our protagonist. As a result, the purification points he gains aren't exactly a windfall, but it doesn't matter. The woods are still crawling with monsters, and each one is a walking bag of points. If he devours enough of them, the total reward might even rival a drop of dragon blood. He scans the crowd, a flash of genuine excitement gleaming in his eyes. He silently dares them to step forward and meet their end. The monsters are gripped by panic, especially those who narrowly escaped his lethal spray. Their faces are pale, and their hearts are racing. They initially thought Huang Xian's toxins were formidable, but this snake's venom is on a completely different level of terror. It's so fast they don't even have time to react. They wonder where this creature came from, as no one has ever heard of such a powerhouse among the Liu family disciples. They are torn between continuing the fight for the blood or fleeing to find another source. Just as they waver, a voice rings out from the shadows, telling them not to be afraid. The voice reminds them that no matter how strong the snake is, he is still just one beast. This dragon blood is their only chance to change their fate, and it's worth any price. Hearing this, the monsters turn their greedy eyes back toward the prize. They decide that swallowing that blood is indeed the only way to defy their lowly destinies. It is their sole path to immortality in an era that is, quite frankly, miserable. Spiritual energy has all but dried up, making life difficult for monsters and humans alike. Cultivation has become an uphill battle, and we see that even great masters have seen their foundations wither away from a lack of pure energy, eventually leading to their demise. Dragon blood is a treasure of the heavens, an opportunity beyond imagination. Even if it is only flood dragon blood, its significance to these scavengers is absolute. If they can seize just one drop, they can transform their very souls and grow stronger. No one is willing to back down now. Use magic, the mysterious voice commands once more. The shout echoes through the clearing, signaling a desperate shift in their tactics. In the next heartbeat, fireballs of every color and size fill the sky. Simultaneously, dark, unnatural winds begin to swirl out of nowhere. The wind fans the flames, making the fireballs swell and burn with terrifying intensity. Though cast by minor demons, the combined assault is surprisingly formidable. It looks like a legendary rain of meteors falling upon the earth. Our protagonist doesn't even bother to dodge, standing his ground as the fire rains down on his scales. The flames leave not a single mark on him. Instead, he uses the cover of the smoke to charge directly at the monsters. They watch in horror, realizing their plan has failed. They assumed their combined strength would at least wound him, but the reality is far worse. They begin to wonder if this snake is somehow entirely immune to fire. The situation on the battlefield is critical, with the tide of combat shifting every second. At any moment, the dragon blood could be snatched away by a lucky survivor. There is no time for them to think, but fortunately for the monsters, their greatest strength isn't magic at all. It is their claws, their fangs, and their raw physical power. With a collective roar, they lunge at him once more. Unfortunately, they have overestimated themselves and vastly underestimated our protagonist, who is no ordinary snake demon. He is a Xianling Great Ash, a creature far beyond what a pack of common monsters can hope to match, and he has no intention of giving up those precious evolution points. However, the enemies are becoming far too numerous, with more approaching from the distance. Realizing he must end this quickly, his gaze sharpens and his massive body coils. His thick, long tail lashes out like a massive whip. The monsters had misunderstood one thing. He only used the uprooted tree earlier to increase his reach. Without the tree, his tail is actually more agile and terrifyingly destructive. The air itself seems to explode with a series of thunderous cracks as the snake tail sweeps through. The sonic booms echo as the monsters in its path are utterly unable to withstand the force. They are sent flying one by one, coughing up sprays of blood. A few truly unlucky souls are shattered instantly, their remains scattered in a scene that is, to be perfectly honest, quite gruesome and terrifying to behold. The system notifications chime in his mind again, 700 evolution points for a spider demon and 900 for a leopard demon. As a steady stream of points flows into his account, we see that while he has cleared a path, several monsters manage to dodge the sweep and are now right in front of him. Thinking they see an opening, the survivors bare their fangs and claws, screaming for his death. Some leap for the snake's head, while others target his flank. They attack with a silent, instinctive coordination, striking at different parts of his massive body simultaneously to ensure he cannot escape every blow. They believe that no matter how he dodges, he cannot avoid everyone, and they will surely tear him apart. And for a moment, it seems their plan is working. Our protagonist's body is simply too large to evade every strike. While he manages to snap his jaws shut on one attacker, the others seize the opportunity to latch on. They begin to bite and claw at him with desperate ferocity. But just as they believe they have finally wounded him, the atmosphere of the battlefield shifts. Instead of the sound of tearing flesh, a sharp metallic clanging rings out. Their claws and fangs fail to pierce his hide, sending showers of sparks flying into the air. The monsters realize with horror that they aren't biting into flesh and blood, but something harder than tempered steel. A few unlucky ones even feel their fangs shatter. With their weapons broken and their strength failing, a wave of shock spreads through the clearing. They knew this snake was special, but this is beyond their imagination. Not only did he ignore their magical barrage, but now their physical attacks cannot even scratch his scales. It makes one wonder if he is truly just an unknown snake. Even the legendary demon kings who rule entire regions are only this formidable. They begin to ask themselves, who, or what, is this creature exactly? They wonder what his origins are, but there is no time left to think. Our protagonist, of course, isn't the type to just take hits without striking back. With his incredible speed, he could have easily dodged the monster's attacks earlier, but he chose not to move. He didn't even flinch. One monster screams that he's trying to surround them all alone and urges the others to flee. They still don't know his history, but they've seen enough. Since their previous attacks were completely useless, they don't dare be careless and immediately begin to scatter in all directions. But once the prey is in the trap, escaping is never quite that simple. Suddenly, a terrifying pressure sweeps out, and demonic energy surges through the mountains as black winds rise to blot out the sun. It feels as if the entire mountaintop is about to be swallowed whole. Before the monsters can even run, they are paralyzed by the sheer weight of his aura. A few try to push through the pressure and keep running, only to find their path blocked by his massive coils. His long, thick body begins to stack up, rising from the ground like a small mountain peak. His massive triangular head looms in the sky, looking down at the monsters with a cold, terrifying gaze. A demon general, the monsters feel that overwhelming pressure and lose their wits entirely. They knew he was extraordinary, but they had their limits. They assumed he was at the peak of the demon soldier rank at most. They never imagined he was a demon general, a leader capable of commanding entire armies. To be honest, in this era of depleted spiritual energy, cultivation is incredibly difficult. Take the old yellow immortal, for example. He practiced for hundreds of years just to reach the 8th level of a demon soldier. Now, a demon general has appeared out of nowhere, a great demon famous enough to shake the provinces. They wonder why they've never heard of him. If they had known he was a general, they never would have dared to fight for the dragon blood. Now, they are truly finished. The gap in power is simply too vast to bridge. They beg for mercy, claiming they were blind not to recognize his greatness, and plead for their lives. They promise to leave immediately and never disturb his meal again, even offering generous gifts later as an apology. The monsters have completely broken down. One by one, they kneel and beg, no longer daring to compete or even look him in the eye. The rules among demons are quite simple, after all. It is the law of the jungle, where the strong are revered. Since he is the strongest, he could eat them all and no one would complain. He ignores their pleas, however. Instead, he looks toward a yellowish figure hiding within the crowd and smiles coldly. It seems they meet again. The monsters quickly scatter, revealing a wretched-looking weasel, the yellow immortal who had just escaped. Our protagonist recognized his voice. It was this fellow who had been secretly inciting the crowd to attack. He had even hidden among the crowd to launch a sneak attack, only to fall right into our protagonist's trap. It was, quite literally, a death wish. Huang Xian trembled violently, his heart filled with pure terror as he forced an awkward smile. He claimed it was all a misunderstanding, pretending he only intended to help. He stammered that since he saw the others attacking, he wanted to step in, but realized now that our hero's strength was so great that his assistance wasn't needed. He truly hoped his excuses would be enough to save his skin. Although he had used a secret technique to temporarily boost his power to the peak of a demon soldier, his opponent was a true demon general. Even if he risked his life, he couldn't win. Realizing he had offended such a terrifying enemy, Huang Xian finally broke down. He bowed deeply, begging for mercy and pleading for his life. He claimed he had learned his lesson and would never dare covet the dragon blood again. He even tried to appeal to their shared heritage as members of the 5 great immortal families. He asked if our protagonist really intended to wipe them all out. It's funny how quickly he switched from calling him a junior to addressing him as senior. The Fox, Willow, Yellow, White, and Gray families are known as the 5 great immortals. While they don't always get along, they are all local demons who usually avoid extreme measures. A few fox and rat spirits watched hopefully, praying he would show mercy to his fellow clansmen. To be honest, they were expecting a leniency that wasn't coming. Unfortunately, the monsters were mistaken about one very important thing. Our protagonist isn't a member of the Willow family, nor is he an ordinary snake demon. He hadn't gone through the trouble of surrounding them just for the dragon blood. He wanted their life essence as well. He wanted the blood, and he wanted them dead. Without giving them a single chance to escape, he opened his massive jaws and sprayed venom like a lethal rain. The monsters began to scream in pure desperation. Having already witnessed the horror of his venom, they turned and fled in every direction. But as we can see, their efforts were entirely in vain. They were like rats in a trap with nowhere to run. One by one, they collapsed, twitching in agony before dying on the spot, leaving behind only their essence. Our protagonist began to devour their life force. A notification rings out. Hedgehog spirit defeated. Reward, 500 evolution points. Another follows. Rat spirit defeated. Reward, 500 points. The points were starting to add up quite nicely. Then came Huang Xian. Our protagonist's coils wrapped around him tighter and tighter until a sickening crunch echoed through the air. The old weasel's time had finally run out. The creature that had practiced for centuries was reduced to a pulp, his bones ground into dust. Only a large orb of life essence remained, which our hero swallowed instantly. System alert, Huang Xian defeated. Reward, 1,000 evolution points. It seems the old weasel was worth twice as much as the others, which makes sense given his long cultivation. Actually, he provided a full 10,000 evolution points. To put that in perspective, even that drop of dragon blood only yielded 20,000. Huang Xian's life essence was incredibly vast, which explains how he reached the 8th rank of a demon soldier. But no matter how strong he was, he still ended up crushed by our protagonist's coils. All those centuries of cultivation simply became a gift for someone else. Hard work, it seems, is no match for a stroke of luck. He looked at the system notifications and nodded with satisfaction. Huang Xian was strong, but not the strongest. In this town, there were still a few. Even more powerful monsters whose essence might be worth more than the dragon blood itself. He realized he needed to consume both blood and beasts to continue his path of evolution and grow stronger. Meanwhile, on the other side of the battlefield, disciples from various Taoist and Buddhist sects were locked in a chaotic struggle for the dragon blood. Uncle Gio and his fellow brothers had joined forces to hold their ground against the others. But suddenly, everyone stopped and turned toward a nearby hillside, their expressions shifting to pure shock. They felt a powerful aura, the presence of a demon general. Xiaoxing and Wenkai, however, felt absolutely nothing. They watched the sudden change in everyone's faces with total confusion and turned to their master for help. They asked why everyone looked so terrified and why even his own expression had turned so grim. Uncle Gio, sensing that horrifying demonic energy, immediately warned them to be careful. A terrifying snake demon had appeared to the northwest, and he told them under no circumstances should they go near it. Xiaoxing and Wenkai grew tense instantly. They knew exactly how capable their master was, and even with so many masters gathered in town, Uncle Gio was still among the very best. For him to be this nervous and to issue such a specific warning meant this snake demon was something truly monstrous. To be honest, Xiaoxing and Wenkai had already seen enough to last a lifetime today. Seeing tiny rats and hedgehogs turn into monsters had been eye-opening enough. Now, hearing about a high-level snake demon made their blood run cold. Even with their master and uncles nearby, they were still terrified, their faces turning pale. They were starting to think that coming to the northeast out of curiosity had been a terrible mistake. Rinjia town was much safer, but it was far too late for regrets now. They huddled close to Uncle Gio, seeking any bit of security. It wasn't just Uncle Gio. Many humans and monsters throughout the area felt that demon general aura and began to grow uneasy. There were only so many opportunities to go around, and the sudden arrival of such a powerful predator directly threatened their interests. Luckily, it was only a general. If a demon king had appeared, they wouldn't be fighting, they'd be running for their lives. With such a formidable enemy nearby, every faction began to hesitate. The various factions began to grow tense, quickly strengthening their defenses while fighting for the dragon blood. High on Longling Mountain, our protagonist had no idea he had already attracted so much attention. Even if he had known, he wouldn't have cared. He had a far more pressing matter at hand, which was to swallow this hard-won drop of dragon blood. He could already sense that the life essence contained within this drop was even richer than the last. This meant more evolution points, and we know how much he loves those. With a sudden flicker of his massive body, he prepared to lunge forward and consume his prize. But at that exact moment, he sensed a wave of murderous intent and whipped his head around. He saw several figures darting out from the forest, rushing toward him at high speed. One of them laughed, shouting that they had found a demon soldier-level snake demon and were about to strike it rich. These people were dressed quite strangely, their bodies covered in eerie markings and tattoos. They carried the distinct air of the Miaojiang region, a place known for its mysterious and ancient traditions. These fellows had traveled across half of China to get here. Clearly, the fallen dragon incident in Inko town had caused quite a stir, drawing out even the reclusive Gu masters. Instead of being afraid, they stared at his massive serpentine form with eyes full of excitement. At that moment, one of them spotted something else and pointed nearby, shouting that there wasn't just a snake demon here, but a drop of dragon blood as well. The group turned their heads in unison, their excitement reaching a fever pitch. They couldn't believe their luck, finding both a high-level snake demon and a drop of dragon blood in one place. It felt like a gift from the heavens. You see, Miaojianggu masters are a very unique sect among human cultivators. To be honest, they are a bit of an outlier. They belong to neither the Buddhist nor Taoist schools, resembling ancient shamans instead. They specialize in manipulating venomous insects, refining them into goo to control the 5 toxins. While their internal cultivation might not be the highest, their techniques are bizarre and extremely dangerous. Snakes, as it happens, are one of the 5 toxins, and arguably the most powerful of the lot. Many Gu masters dream of controlling a snake as a primary familiar, but breeding such creatures is incredibly difficult. Usually, a Gu master is perfectly satisfied if they can raise a mid-level venomous insect. Now, they had stumbled upon a lone, high-level snake demon. If they could refine him into a Gu, their power would increase tenfold, perhaps even allowing them to promote to the rank of Great Shaman. This is why, the moment they sensed his aura, they abandoned the main struggle for dragon blood and rushed here to capture him. They never expected to find both the snake and the blood. It was a double blessing. The Gu masters were now lost in a state of pure ecstasy, already calculating how to divide the spoils. Their leader barked out an order for everyone to attack together and capture the snake as quickly as possible. The plan was simple. They would divide the spoils. There was only one snake demon, but with the dragon blood included, no one would lose out. Immediately, the Gu masters sprang into action. We see them quickly pulling open various pouches, and in an instant, swarms of venomous spiders, insects, and even snakes crawl out, rushing toward our protagonist like a tide. Some began beating gongs and drums while chanting strange incantations. Suddenly, a faint red light flickered over the crawling insects, and their speed began to increase dramatically. Their auras grew more frenzied, clearly bolstered by the magic. Taking advantage of the chaos, the Gu masters themselves charged forward, coordinating their movements with practiced precision. They moved with a discipline that the previous group of monsters lacked entirely. However, our snake friend didn't care. With his strength, there was simply no need to worry about them. But just as he prepared to strike, something bizarre happened. His massive body suddenly swayed, and he was hit by a wave of inexplicable, sickening discomfort. It felt as though he had been struck by an invisible force, causing his demonic energy to waver and scatter. A golden hue flashed across his face. To be honest, he was quite surprised. He had already gauged their power, noting they were only at the 6th or 7th level of chi refinement. Because of this, he hadn't truly considered them a threat. He never expected that these minor characters could actually affect him. It seems the Gu arts of Miaojiang are not to be underestimated, which tells you everything you need to know. The Gu masters noticed his hesitation and burst into laughter, shouting that the snake demon had fallen for their trap. They urged each other to finish the job quickly. These specialists spend their lives mastering vermin, so naturally, they have developed ways to suppress them. If successful, these techniques can drastically weaken an opponent's power. This was exactly why they had abandoned the main hunt for the dragon blood the moment they spotted a snake demon of this caliber. They were desperate to capture him, but unfortunately, these Gu masters had miscalculated one very important thing. He wasn't just a common snake demon. He was a black spirit giant python. Such a creature cannot be controlled by mere Gu arts. The influence was only momentary, and he recovered almost instantly, his heart now cold with murderous intent. He knew that the longer this fight dragged on, the more rivals would arrive. He had already accumulated tens of thousands of evolution points, and with this drop of dragon blood, he was close to evolving again. He had no time to waste on these people. He decided to end this quickly. With a deafening roar that seemed to say they had chosen the path to their own graves, a terrifying surge of demonic energy erupted from his body. In an instant, a violent wind howled, shaking the surrounding trees and cracking the very ground beneath them. As that demonic gale hit the Gu masters, their faces turned pale and blood sprayed from their noses and mouths. They were terrified, wondering how he could still move. They shouted warnings that this snake was far from ordinary. The group fell into a state of total panic, having never expected such a sudden reversal of fortune. The intense demonic aura radiating from his scales was overwhelming, and it was becoming clear that their little tricks were not going to be enough to save them today. The air was thick with a substance that made his skin crawl, realgar powder. This toxic mineral is the natural nemesis of all serpents and insects. We see a nod to the old tradition of drinking realgar wine during the Dragon Boat Festival to ward off pests, but the powder used by these goo masters was far more potent. It was mixed with rare medicinal herbs to amplify its toxicity. In theory, even a high-level snake demon shouldn't be able to withstand it, or so they thought. Our protagonist simply let out a soft hiss. With a violent whip of his tail, he kicked up a massive gale that blew the realgar powder right back at them. At the same time, he seized the chance to spit out globs of venom, mixing them into the returning powder to make it even more lethal. One unlucky goo master cried out. He had been hit by the venom and collapsed instantly, rolling on the ground in agony. His companions were horrified and rushed forward, hoping to save him. But our friend's venom is a terrifying thing. Before they could even reach him, the screams stopped abruptly. The man had already ceased his struggling. His head had been completely corroded away. A system notification chimed. One goo master killed, rewarding 1,000 evolution points. Not a bad haul at all. He felt a flicker of satisfaction. While these goo masters weren't particularly strong, their life essence was incredibly rich, far more so than ordinary monsters. This was an unexpected harvest. He no longer resented their sudden appearance. In fact, he found himself wishing there were more of them to go around. The remaining goo masters, however, were pale with terror. They couldn't understand why this snake demon was immune to their sorcery and their realgar powder. They wondered what kind of monster he truly was. They had spent years mastering their goo arts and refining that powder with countless precious materials. It was supposed to be the ultimate bane of his kind, yet it was useless here. The goo masters were starting to break down, their confidence utterly shattered. They even began to wonder if snakes from the north were just fundamentally different from those in Miaojiang. They certainly didn't want to capture him anymore. With the dragon's lair nearby, they realized there was no point in a fight to the death. Someone shouted a retreat, and the survivors didn't hesitate for a second. They turned to flee, but he wasn't about to let them leave. He let out a cold snort, and with a sudden surge of power, his massive body blurred. The giant serpent actually took to the air, riding a gust of demonic energy like a bolt of lightning. He swung his thick tail with devastating force. The strike sent dead leaves and branches flying everywhere. The goo masters were battered by the demonic wind, their faces covered in blood and dirt. He was simply too fast. In an instant, he appeared in front of them and opened his massive maw to draw them in. They tried to scatter in a panic, but it was already too late. The giant snake head lunged down, swallowing one goo master whole. In a heartbeat, the man's life essence was gone. His life essence was devoured in an instant, leaving behind only a withered skeleton that was spat out. A system chime confirmed another 1,000 evolution points for the kill. The remaining goo masters were on the verge of a total breakdown. They simply couldn't understand how a snake demon at the demon general realm could be this terrifying. Regret washed over them, but it was far too late for apologies. After devouring the master, our protagonist's aura surged, his demonic energy growing thicker by the second. He let out a silent, triumphant roar as his massive tail swept down from the air. The earth trembled violently under the impact, tearing open deep, jagged fissures. The remaining goo masters were caught in the strike, their bodies instantly bursting into a mist of blood. This crimson essence flowed directly into his waiting maw. The notifications continued to chime, another 1,000 points, and then another. It was becoming quite a lucrative afternoon for our giant friend. To be perfectly honest, these goo masters weren't weak. They possessed numerous techniques specifically designed to suppress serpents, tools that would defeat any ordinary demon. But unfortunately for them, they had encountered the black spirit python. Those specialized suppression methods meant very little to a creature of his caliber. One could say they died for their ambition. Having devoured the group, he felt his power reaching a bottleneck. A breakthrough was surely imminent. We see that Inko Town has descended into absolute chaos, filled with slaughter and greed. However, he no longer had any interest in continuing this petty brawl. After all, no matter how many small fry he defeated, the dragon's lair remained the true prize. Seeing more cultivators rushing his way, he decided not to waste time. He immediately activated his mist technique. Thick, rolling clouds surged outward, swallowing the entire hillside in an impenetrable white veil as the pursuers cursed in frustration. They shouted that the snake had escaped with the dragon's lair. Given his massive size, they assumed he couldn't have gone far and warned each other to stay close. The crowd nodded fervently, having witnessed his overwhelming strength. In a fog like this, wandering off alone was essentially a death sentence, and they knew it. The group began a cautious search. The temptation of a demon general-level serpent was simply too great, whether for use as a guardian pet or for refining pills. And that's not even mentioning the drop of dragon blood. Driven by greed, many plunged into the mist, desperately trying to track his movements. But they could search every inch of that hill and find nothing. Little did they know, under the cover of the fog, he had used his earth travel technique to dive deep underground. He hadn't actually fled the area, though. After submerging with the dragon's lair, he continued to prowl just beneath the surface, watching his pursuers like a ghost. With the prize in hand and his movements hidden by mist and earth, he could retreat or strike at will. Naturally, he was looking for an opening to ambush them. However, those who had come to Inko Town for the miracle were no amateurs. They were on high alert. He waited patiently, but a perfect opportunity failed to arise. He he decided to abandon the ambush, choosing instead to dive deeper underground to rest and finally consume the dragon's lair he had worked so hard to obtain. After spending so much time pursuing this single drop of essence, he finally found a moment to breathe and, without a second's hesitation, swallowed it whole. A single drop of this essence is enough to create a demon general or even a demon marshal, though a common monster would likely explode from such power. Fortunately, the heavenly lightning had dissipated most of its volatile energy, making it safe to consume, yet this drop remained far more potent than the last. The power surged through his body like a raging torrent. Luckily, having already consumed one drop of dragon blood, his physical form adapted to the influx quickly. As a black spirit python, his innate talent allowed him to absorb energy several times faster than others, converting it with incredible efficiency. In an instant, his blood began to boil, and he felt as though his entire body was being torn apart by the sheer intensity of the transformation. Yet, strangely enough, that agonizing pain felt wonderful, as if every single cell in his body was cheering. He couldn't help but let out a triumphant roar. His scales vibrated violently as they greedily drank in the power. It was a marvelous sensation, watching his strength grow at such a frantic pace. He could even hear the faint, rhythmic cracking sounds coming from within his own frame. It was the sound of rapid, unnatural growth. His body stretched and thickened at an alarming rate. We see him expanding further and further until, after what felt like an eternity, the change finally slowed. His physical form had undergone another massive evolution. Originally dozens of meters long, he had now grown into a titan exceeding 100 meters in length. Each of his scales now shimmered with a cold, metallic luster, looking more like forged steel than bone. Then, the system chime announced his reward. He had earned 30,000 evolution points, not 20,000 as he had expected. Feeling the raw power within him, his excitement only grew. He knew this drop of dragon blood was more concentrated, but an extra 10,000 points was a delightful surprise. To be honest, it was a fantastic haul. It seems that hunting minor demons is like chasing mosquitoes. The dragon blood is the only true path to power, and the benefits didn't stop at points. The massive energy allowed his cultivation to break through 2 levels in a row, reaching the 3rd rank of the demon general realm. Having only just entered the demon general stage, he hadn't expected to advance again so soon. Overjoyed, he quickly opened the system to check his status. His lineage was confirmed as the Black Spirit Python. His realm was now Demon General Rank 3, and his primary technique remained the Demon Emperor's Law. His arsenal of skills, from mist and earth travel to wine control, remained ready, and his evolution points had reached a staggering total of 70,000. He could devour the essence of any living being to transform it into evolution points for his own growth. With 78,000 points now in his possession, he realized that swallowing just one more drop of dragon blood would trigger another evolution. He nodded inwardly, but as he read further, he was in for another surprise. Even without evolving this time, he had awakened 2 new spells. It suddenly dawned on him that he wasn't just a common snake demon, but a black spirit python with a bloodline legacy. Within that bloodline lay inherited techniques, and these 2 new spells were born from that ancient source. The first, the clone technique, was simple enough, creating several snake phantoms. These clones lacked offensive power and served only to confuse his enemies. However, with continued practice, he could eventually turn these phantoms into physical entities. The higher his mastery, the stronger these clones would become. Then there was wind control, which, as the name suggests, allowed him to ride the winds and take to the skies. It was a flight technique, though for now, it was merely hovering on the wind, far less impressive than soaring through the clouds. Still, he was more than satisfied. Both newly mastered spells were incredibly practical, especially now when it came to seizing opportunities. While others were stuck on the ground, he could simply fly up. He could intercept the dragon blood in midair. He would need to be careful, of course, as the open sky offered no cover and could turn him into an easy target. He knew he had to proceed with caution. In fact, he was feeling a bit hesitant, unsure whether to keep charging forward for more loot or to quit while he was ahead. Even if he left now, his strength was formidable. But many great demons and masters from major sects had arrived, and being a rank 3 demon general was a bit complicated. He looked strong, yes, but compared to those true powerhouses, he was still little more than cannon fodder. Only by reaching the demon martial realm could he truly dominate. He had already run into trouble earlier when facing those bone sellers from the Miaozhong region. Fortunately, as a black spirit python, he was completely unafraid of their tricks. Otherwise, he might have been in serious danger. No one could guarantee that others didn't possess powers specifically designed to counter him. After all, earth travel wasn't a skill unique to him. Continuing the fight could easily lead to a fatal mistake, making a quiet exit the wise choice. But his gains this time had been simply too massive to ignore. He had transformed from a tiny snake into a rank 3 demon general, a black spirit python with powerful spells and ample points. His evolution points had reached a staggering 73,000. Just one more drop of dragon blood, or perhaps devouring a few more cultivators, would trigger his next evolution. With such an enormous temptation dangling right in front of him, how could he possibly bear to leave? He watched the chaotic battle below, unable to make a final decision. Most importantly, he knew how this story was supposed to end, the fall of the true dragon. This meant the dragon was destined to fail, and its body would fall to the earth. If a single drop of blood had given him this much, imagine the possibilities if he could get a few bites of dragon meat, or even the bones and the dragon core. The potential harvest was so immense he could hardly imagine it. It was this very thought that kept him rooted to the spot, unwilling to leave despite the obvious danger. Wealth is found in risk, after all. He had mastered so many spells and possessed such strength that walking away from a heavenly opportunity like this felt impossible. If he didn't dare to gamble now, he might survive, but he would surely regret it forever. He knew the difference between bravery and recklessness, so he decided to prepare. We see him pour his magic into a technique to shroud the area. The mist on the ground grew thick and heavy, spreading rapidly in all directions until it threw the entire battlefield into absolute chaos. The combatants were baffled by the sudden fog, wondering who was behind the trick. Both human cultivators and demons had been fighting fiercely until the mist arrived. Now, they could see nothing. They didn't know where their enemies were, or even their allies, making them vulnerable to a sudden, unseen strike. While the humans struggled to find their bearings, the various monsters and demons found they actually had the upper hand. Yes, they had lost their sight, but their keen senses of smell and hearing remained sharp. They took the opportunity to lash out, and many human cultivators fell in the darkness. The humans didn't just wait for death, however, they activated their spirit eyes to regain their vision. This inspired others to realize the fog was a perfect cover. The dragon blood and treasures were limited, and the strongest had already claimed most of them. But in this mist, even the weaker ones could fish in troubled waters. Monsters and cultivators alike began casting spells to make the fog even denser, until the entire town of Inko was swallowed by the white haze. Only the weakest disciples suffered. Poor Qiuxing and Wenkai were in over their heads. They had been slackers for years and never quite mastered the spirit eye. As the mist enveloped them, panic set in. They scrambled toward the spot where they had last seen their master, Uncle Gio. But they were soon left staring blankly at nothing. They remembered Uncle Gio being right here, yet the thick fog had erased every landmark. It was so dark they couldn't see their own hands, let alone their master. Worse still, a fox spirit had heard their cries and was now stalking them from behind. The creature lunged through the air, its claws gleaming with a cold light. One strike would be enough to tear their throats open. But just then, a flash of sword light sliced through the mist. A figure charged forward, skewering the fox spirit in a single, fluid motion. Qiuxing and Wenkai jumped in fright, but when they realized who their savior was, they couldn't help but cheer with relief. It was indeed their master, Uncle Gio, and he wasn't alone. Other Maoshan disciples were gathering around him as he let out a sigh of relief. Uncle Gio let out a sharp breath and turned around, showing them the fox's corpse on his blade as a warning that they had nearly died without even knowing it. Seeing the dead fox spirit, Qiuxing and Wenkai were paralyzed with fear, realizing that without Uncle Gio, they would be dead. They begged him never to leave them again. Uncle Gio didn't waste time on words. Instead, he pulled out 2 talismans and quickly placed them over his disciples' eyes to open their spirit vision. With a quick swipe, Qiuxing and Wenkai felt their vision brighten. While they couldn't see through the fog entirely, they could at least see their immediate surroundings. This brought them a small measure of peace, and they hurriedly asked what was happening and why such a massive mist had suddenly appeared. Uncle Gio shook his head, admitting he didn't know. Initially, the fog was thick with demonic energy, likely cast by a monster, but now the aura had shifted. The situation was worsening as the energy within the mist became incredibly chaotic and mixed. He could guess that others were now taking advantage of the confusion. The Maoshan sect had been one of the strongest forces on the battlefield, and by working together, the disciples had already secured several portions of dragon blood. But now, this rising mist had thrown them into a difficult position. If they stayed huddled together, they wouldn't find any more dragon blood in time. However, if they scattered, they would be vulnerable to ambushes. The Maoshan disciples hesitated, unsure of the best way to proceed in this blinding white haze. Just then, a dazzling light suddenly sliced through the sky, turning the world pure white for a moment before a thunderous roar followed close behind. The sound startled everyone, and we see them instinctively look up at the sky, only to witness a truly terrifying sight unfolding above them. The flood dragon was covered in exploding lightning, with silver serpents of electricity dancing wildly as the terrifying thunder tore through the dark clouds. The power was so immense that even the mist on the ground was swept away, leaving humans and monsters alike exposed to the open air once more. They could see each other again, and the sight was chaotic. The previous fog had been so thick that some monsters had accidentally wandered into human camps. Similarly, some humans had walked right up to monsters. It was a mess, but no one cared about that now, not the humans, and certainly not the demons. Every eye was fixed on the sky, watching the flood dragon undergo its tribulation with a sense of profound shock. The dragon was now completely engulfed in lightning. It roared in agony, struggling desperately to withstand the heavenly strike, but in the end, its strength failed and its life force began to snap. The massive body, covered in burns and deep wounds, began to plummet from the sky, devoid of any spark of life. It was a grim sight, to be honest. Everyone could see the despair and resentment lingering in the dragon's giant eyes, leaving them to wonder if ascending to immortality was truly impossible in this era. An inexplicable sense of sorrow began to emerge as we see the onlookers empathizing with the flood dragon, whose immense power and noble lineage had already brought it to the brink of transformation. Yet, in the end, it failed to survive the heavenly tribulation and died with its eyes wide open. They wondered what the point of all that bitter cultivation was if it only led to nothingness. So many had already been killed in the struggle for dragon blood and spirits, dying quite pitifully, really. But now was not the time for such somber reflections. Every soul present shared the same sudden realization. The flood dragon had failed its tribulation. The cry went out to charge and seize the corpse before anyone else could. The entire town of Inko erupted into chaos. Humans and monsters alike scrambled toward the spot where the dragon was falling, driven by the prospect of such a legendary prize. Even a small piece of that body would be a stroke of immense fortune. They abandoned their previous duels, their minds now consumed by a single thought: claim the dragon. At that moment, new voices joined the fray from inside and outside the town, all rushing toward the falling remains. These were the opportunists who had been lurking in the shadows. They had arrived long ago, but had remained hidden in Inko, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Seeing the corpse plummeting, Xiaoxing and Wenkai instantly forgot they had nearly been killed moments ago. They urgently prodded Uncle Gio to get moving before they missed out. Uncle Gio, naturally understanding the gravity of the situation, gave the order for everyone to charge together. To be honest, speed was now their only ally. The plan was simple: grab the body first and worry about dividing it later. The Maoshan disciples used their superior numbers to their advantage, some grabbing while others blocked rivals. Other major factions began their own desperate maneuvers, pouring every ounce of strength into the hunt. Of course, the weaker participants knew their limits. With a bit of self-awareness, they avoided the main struggle and instead pounced on scattered dragon scales and blood pools. Some succeeded in their scavenging and immediately fled. They vanished from the battlefield as quickly as possible, while many others, blinded by greed, stayed behind, desperate to harvest even more from the fallen titan. Suddenly, streaks of black energy shot into the sky as several monsters took flight, attempting to intercept the dragon's body midair. "Stop them!" the crowd screamed. A chorus of angry shouts rose from the ground, followed immediately by a barrage of fireballs, lightning, and various magical artifacts launched at the flying demons. Though these flying monsters possessed some strength, they couldn't withstand a collective assault. Two were blown to pieces instantly, dying a rather messy death on the spot. Deep underground, a hidden observer realized he had predicted the dragon's failure, which is why he had stirred the chaos, though even he hadn't expected the end to come so quickly. As he prepared to ride the wind and snatch the prize mid-fall, he saw the monsters above being torn apart by the crowd. It gave him a sudden, chilling pause. He felt a wave of lingering fear, grateful he hadn't acted on impulse. No matter how strong his defenses were, he wouldn't have survived that many spells at once. This opportunity was simply too precious to ignore. People had traveled from the ends of the earth to be here, including many true powerhouses compared to whom a mere demon smith was nothing. To be honest, those monsters who just perished served as a grim warning. He knew better than to act rashly. After all, he was currently a snake demon, and a vulnerable one at that. If he were to show his face now, he would likely be attacked instantly. Fortunately, he still had his earth-traveling techniques, so he shifted his form and hurried toward the dragon's crash site. As he rushed forward, he suddenly sensed ripples of magical power all around him. It seemed he wasn't the only one choosing to travel beneath the surface. Even more alarming was the fact that several of these magical signatures felt incredibly dangerous. Realizing this, he immediately slowed his pace to stay behind the others. Lacking the strength to seize the prize by force, he decided his best bet was to wait for the right moment. After the recent chaos, the sky had become a forbidden zone. No one dared to fly anymore. Even the surviving monsters scrambled back to the ground, terrified of being mobbed. While the surface erupted, a dark undercurrent flowed below. Above ground, the battle grew increasingly frantic and violent as various spells began to fly wildly in every direction. The scene was one of total disorder. This was arguably the greatest opportunity in centuries, and no one was willing to step aside. Seeing they couldn't outmatch the great factions, the rogue cultivators grew desperate. They began hurling spells indiscriminately. The battlefield turned into a meat grinder with a rising body count, yet nothing could stop the frantic charge toward the dragon. Then, under the watchful eyes of the entire crowd, the flood dragon's massive corpse hit the ground with a deafening thud, sending blood and flesh spraying everywhere. A few fragments even tumbled far to the rear, landing right in the hands of a low-level cultivator who hadn't even stood a chance of getting close to the main body. It was a stroke of luck he never expected. That cultivator didn't hesitate. He snatched up the dragon meat and bolted. In fact, all across the battlefield, lucky souls were scavenging blood and scales. These small prizes only fueled the madness, leading to more slaughter and walls of defensive wind. However, the crowd soon noticed something quite troubling. The dragon had been struck down by the heavenly tribulation, and its body had already been ravaged by that terrifying lightning. That was why it shattered upon impact. Most of the flesh had been reduced to charcoal, with only a tiny fraction retaining any power. And then, as a sudden gust of wind swept through the area, the remains began to scatter. To their absolute horror, the dragon's corpse began to turn to ash before their eyes. In the end, many failed to grab even a single drop of blood for all their trouble. In the end, they were far less fortunate than those few who had quit while they were ahead and left early. As for those who had already rushed to the corpse, several of them simply lost their minds. They threw themselves onto the ground, stuffing handfuls of ash into their mouths in a desperate attempt to absorb any lingering power. Others, however, felt a wave of relief. They told themselves they were lucky to have already snatched some dragon blood and spirit fragments. Otherwise, this whole trip would have been for nothing. To be honest, many had sensed this coming. The power within the dragon blood they had just seized was inconsistent, varying wildly because the heavenly tribulation had ravaged different parts of the body to different degrees. The dragon had been struck by lightning for so long that the damage was far worse than anyone imagined. No one expected the corpse to be destroyed so utterly. The tribulation didn't just kill the dragon, it shattered everyone's crude hopes of an easy path to immortality. We see them watching helplessly as this creature, which was one step from godhood, began to crumble. Its spirit fragments shattered and its flesh rotted away, turning into ash that scattered in the wind until only a skeleton remained. But just as the crowd believed all hope was lost, a sudden flash of light caught everyone's attention. From within the remains of the dragon's corpse, a sphere of pale golden light began to emerge. It looked ethereal and hazy, almost like a dream, yet everyone present could sense the incredibly pure and massive power contained within that golden glow. It was the dragon essence. Everyone who saw that light went absolutely wild, instantly recognizing it for what it truly was, the very core of a dragon's power. A dragon is a treasure from head to tail, but beyond the flesh, scales, and bone, its concentrated life force forms the dragon essence. Under normal circumstances, even a true dragon might not necessarily condense such a thing. To think that this dragon, despite failing its tribulation, had actually produced dragon essence, it was, quite frankly, a miracle. Suddenly, it all made sense. The dragon's power had condensed into this essence, which is why the rest of the body turned to ash, which, naturally, changed everything. The dragon essence is the most precious treasure a dragon can offer. By consuming it, one could easily live for centuries or even a millennium without any trouble. One could even advance directly to the spirit refining realm. Even if the entire corpse had remained intact, it wouldn't be as valuable as this. This was the great opportunity they had all been waiting for. "Seize it," someone screamed, and suddenly every human, demon, and ghost moved at once. Forgetting everything else, they lunged frantically toward the light. The monks claimed the treasure was destined for the Buddha, while the Taoists of Mount Longhu shouted that it belonged to them. Meanwhile, the monsters had their own ideas. A massive swarm of demons surged forward, declaring that all humans deserved to die. In their eyes, since the dragon was a demon before its tribulation, its legacy naturally belonged to the demon race. They saw the humans as nothing more than thieves. The snake demons, in particular, viewed the dragon as a venerable ancestor of their own kind. And they weren't entirely wrong, as snakes and dragons share the same roots. If they could obtain the dragon essence, they might transform directly from mere snakes into dragons. After another 1,000 years of cultivation, they could become flood dragons ready for their own tribulation. For the snake demons, the dragon essence was worth more than anything. Regardless of the cost, they were determined to reclaim it for their kin. And so, the battle erupted once more, turning the scene into a chaotic mess where everyone fought desperately, attacking and defending in a blind frenzy. Most didn't even know who they were hitting or who was hitting them. Suddenly, a massive roar shook the entire field. A gargantuan tiger demon leaped into the fray, its bloody maw wide as it began a savage slaughter. Its teeth were as sharp as blades, glinting with a cold light as they tore several Taoists to shreds in an instant. "Watch out," someone cried, trying to intervene. But they were no match for the beast and were swatted away, coughing up blood with no hope of survival. This was a tiger demon at the demon martial realm. "Run for your lives," the crowd screamed as they finally realized the beast's power level. They were, quite understandably, scared out of their wits. A tiger is already the king of beasts, but a demon martial tiger is something far more cruel. At that moment, it seemed no one present could stand against her. Just as the tiger demon was about to seize the dragon essence, a thunderous voice boomed through the crowd. "Get lost. That belongs to me." With a deafening explosion, a bolt of lightning tore through the battlefield, striking the tiger demon. Unable to dodge, she took the hit and was sent flying. She was left with a gruesome, bloody wound. It took only a single strike to humble a demon marshal. We see a figure stepping forward, wearing a black and white Taoist robe. His expression was cold, his eyes deep, and his brow carried an air of stern indifference that commanded absolute authority. He radiated a majesty that made people hesitate to even step near him. Soon, someone recognized him and shouted, "It's the senior brother of Mount Mao." The one who had intervened was indeed the lightning Dharma king, Shi Jian. Previously, the crowd had only noticed the other disciples, but Shi Jian had been nowhere to be seen. Many assumed he hadn't come, but he had simply been hiding in the crowd, waiting for the perfect moment to shock everyone. Senior brother is amazing, the Mao disciples cheered. To them, Shi Jian was a pillar of strength, and his appearance changed the entire dynamic. If he obtained the dragon essence, he might become the greatest figure in the Taoist world, bringing unprecedented glory to Mao. They were, naturally, thrilled. Even Uncle Gio breathed a sigh of relief. With his and Shi Jian's combined power, supported by the other disciples, they were now the strongest force on the field. It seemed the dragon essence was finally within their reach. Disciples of Mao, move out. Support the senior brother. Gio commanded immediately. He led the charge towards Shi Jian, intending to escort him away the moment the treasure was secured. Meanwhile, Shi Jian looked on with a cold gaze. Looking at the dragon essence, Shi Jian smiled. He had lurked for so long, even giving up the dragon cave, and finally, his patience was being rewarded. Once he refined it, he would achieve immortality. Demon marshals and dark wizards would be nothing to him. To be honest, he didn't even consider the others present as worthy of his attention. After wounding the tiger demon with lightning, he immediately lunged for the dragon essence to seize this ultimate opportunity. We see the others watching his silhouette, their faces filled with resentment. That was the dragon essence, perhaps their only hope for immortality. No matter how powerful Shi Jian was, the crowd didn't want to give up. But what could they do? Starting a war with Mao was a heavy price, and very few could actually hope to defeat Shi Jian in a direct confrontation. They could only watch as he drew closer to the treasure. Suddenly, a voice hissed that if they couldn't have it, they would never let a human succeed. At that moment, the heavily injured tiger demon managed to crawl back up. Her body was broken, but her eyes burned with a mixture of hatred and agonizing pain. With a roar toward the heavens, she lunged forward once more. Shi Jian, seeing this suicidal behavior, simply decided to grant her wish for death. He actually found it somewhat amusing. He could use this chance to kill the beast with a show of overwhelming power, serving as a warning to anyone else with ill intentions. But then, a strange surge of magical energy erupted from the tiger demon. Everyone froze, suddenly struck by a very bad feeling about what was coming next. A second later, a deafening explosion rocked the field as a terrifying force burst from within the tiger demon. She had chosen to self-destruct. Shi Jian's expression shifted instantly. He was powerful, yes, but he was still a man of flesh and blood who couldn't withstand a point-blank self-detonation. Even with the dragon essence right there, he didn't dare take another step forward and was forced to retreat at high speed. The destructive force instantly swallowed everything in the immediate vicinity. Several nearby cultivators didn't even realize what was happening before they perished. Endless flames and dust filled the area, and the entire zone was utterly devastated. We can only watch as that destructive power enveloped the dragon essence itself. Then, amidst the explosion, a strange cracking sound reached everyone's ears. Hearts leaped into throats. The dragon essence had already been weakened by the lightning tribulation, and now, under the impact of the blast, cracks began to spiderweb across the golden light. Finally, it shattered with a bang, splitting into 8 fragments that flew off in every direction. The crowd realized the treasure had broken, and with it, a new opportunity arose. Everyone charged. Though they initially felt a sense of loss seeing the essence break, they quickly realized the situation had changed in their favor. Before, they feared Shi Jian's power too much to snatch the whole prize. But now that it was 8 pieces, it meant 8 separate chances for fortune. No matter how strong Shi Jian was, he couldn't be in 8 places at once. Chaos erupted again as the crowd instantly forgot the danger they had just witnessed. The crowd had already scattered with lightning speed to snatch up the fragments. "Senior brother, what do we do?" the Mao disciples cried out, lost in the chaos. "A few of you team up to grab that one, and I'll take this one," Shi Jian shouted, nearly driven mad with rage. He had been just one step away, just a hair's breadth from obtaining the complete dragon essence. Now, he was reduced to chasing shards. Deep down, he knew that even with his immense power, reclaiming every single piece was now impossible. The situation was far too urgent for second-guessing, so he lunged toward the nearest fragment of golden light. The other Mao disciples, having no better plan, charged toward another piece. "Die, all of you!" Shi Jian roared, his energy exploding in a frantic burst. At this moment, he saw nothing but the dragon essence. Whether it was a human, a demon, or a ghost in his path, he met them with his lightning fist. His strength was truly terrifying to behold. The lightning fist, a secret technique of Mao, ensured that no creature could withstand even a single blow. One punch was all it took to shatter a soul into nothingness. Seeing this level of brutality, the others began to feel a cold wave of fear and turned to flee. After all, there wasn't just one fragment. There was no need to throw their lives away against Shi Jian when they could try their luck elsewhere. Before long, Shi Jian had cleared the immediate area, leaving only corpses behind. He scanned the carnage and finally allowed himself a small sigh of relief. Finally, with no enemies left, this fragment belonged to him. Overjoyed, he reached out to claim his prize, but at that exact moment, something shifted. A sudden jet of water erupted from beneath the earth. The surrounding grass withered instantly, and the ground turned a sickly black. This was poison. Shi Jin's expression darkened as he realized someone was launching a sneak attack from underground. But to him, such toxins were merely the sting of an insect. "Show yourself, you worm," he barked. Even as he retreated, he drew a talisman and hurled it at the ground. A massive explosion followed as a bolt of lightning tore into the earth, leaving a gaping crater. Yet, there was no sign of the attacker. Deep underground, our protagonist, Nixin, felt a surge of terror. That was far too close. He had been lurking beneath the surface, waiting for the right moment to snatch the essence amidst the chaos. But he hadn't expected this. Shi Jin's power was overwhelming. He had crippled a tiger demon marshal in one move. Nixin, having only just reached the 3rd level of demon artisan, knew better than to seek death. And yet, with such a legendary opportunity right in front of him, who could truly walk away? He wondered if he should retreat and target a different fragment. But there were masters in every direction. Even if they weren't as strong as Shi Jin, they were more than a match for a small demon artisan. What was he to do? Nixin's heart raced with anxiety. He hadn't expected to run into Shi Jin here, and worse, he was running out of time before the essence fell into another's hands. In the hands of these masters, even the cleverest plan seemed futile, but Nixin decided to risk it all for the reward. His evolution points had already reached 73,000. He was on the verge of another evolution, and deep down, he knew that any price paid would be worth it to secure a single dragon essence fragment. He made his choice instantly. With a surge of resolve, he dove back toward the surface. Did he escape? Shi Jin muttered, frowning at the empty crater, though he didn't relax his guard for a single second. His spiritual energy surged as he prepared his lightning fist, ready to unleash a devastating thunderbolt the very moment he pinpointed his hidden enemy's location. Suddenly, a massive dark shadow erupted from the ground behind him, its bloody maw wide enough to swallow him whole in a single, terrifying gulp. It was a colossal serpent demon, moving with such blinding speed that it left no room for evasion. A mere demon general dares to snatch food from a tiger's mouth. Shi Jin sneered. Unfazed, Shi Jin unleashed his lightning fist. A terrifying burst of electricity instantly tore through the air, illuminating the battlefield with a blinding, jagged glare. The bolt struck the serpent demon directly, but then, something truly bizarre happened. The creature offered no resistance whatsoever and simply vanished into thin air. Shi Jin's face paled as he realized it was a decoy. He whipped his head back toward the dragon essence, fearing the worst, and his fears were immediately confirmed. He watched as another serpent demon emerged from the earth and swallowed the fragment whole. Even the most stubborn observer would have realized by now that Shi Jin had been played. The first serpent had been nothing more than bait, but he couldn't understand how. He had clearly sensed the creature's demonic aura and felt his blow connect. How could it be a fake? After all, he was the senior brother of Mao, the Lightning Dharma King. To be honest, the idea of an illusion fooling him was insulting. He wondered what kind of sorcery this could possibly be. Of course, it wasn't an illusion at all, but a physical clone. Nixin knew he was no match for Shi Jin in a fair fight. So, he had used his clone to distract the master while he personally snatched the prize. The plan had worked perfectly, perhaps a bit too perfectly for his own comfort. Without a moment's hesitation, Nixin swallowed the essence and dove back into the soil. It was time to leave. He activated his earth travel technique to make his escape. But just as his body merged with the earth, a cold shiver ran down his spine. Above him, the sky seemed to collapse as a series of thunderous explosions rocked the ground. Bolts of lightning rained down with frantic intensity, literally blasting the soil away and exposing Nixin to the open air once again. It was a terrifying sight to behold. He looked back to see Shi Jin's face twisted in a murderous snarl. Shi Jin couldn't swim through the earth, but he could certainly use his lightning fist to demolish it. Worse still, the lightning was moving with impossible speed, closing the gap in a heartbeat. "I'll see just how far you can run," Shi Jin roared, his voice trembling with rage. With a truly hideous expression, Shi Jin gathered the flickering electricity between his fists and prepared to strike. He was, after all, the senior brother of Mao. How could he allow himself to be toyed with by a mere serpent demon? Nixin realized things had taken a turn for the worse, and with no time to escape, he desperately channeled all his demonic energy. He focused every ounce of power to protect his body, gritting his teeth as he prepared to endure the coming impact through sheer force of will. A massive explosion followed. Somehow, he held on, physically withstanding the raw power of Shi Jin's lightning fist. However, he had no time to celebrate his survival, nor could he afford to worry about his battered body. Despite his injuries, he activated his earth travel technique once more, diving straight into the depths of the soil. Above ground, Shi Jin was stunned. He knew his own strength better than anyone. He had struck with full force, a blow that should have been fatal. He couldn't understand how a lowly serpent demon could possess such a terrifyingly resilient defense. To make matters worse, the serpent didn't linger for even a second. Having swallowed the dragon essence, it fled immediately, leaving Shi Jin without a single chance for a follow-up strike. As we look at the battlefield, Shi Jin stands surrounded by corpses, staring at the spot where the dragon essence vanished. He felt a surge of stifling rage so intense he nearly coughed up blood. He had waited in ambush for so long and slaughtered so many monsters, only to have the prize snatched away by a mere demon general. It was, quite frankly, a humiliating defeat. He cursed the damned worm, swearing to find it no matter where it hid and make it suffer a fate worse than death. Shi Jian had truly lost his composure. He began swinging his fists wildly, sending bolts of lightning to tear through the earth and destroy everything in sight. He left behind nothing but deep craters as he vented his fury. Fortunately for him, there were still 7 other fragments of dragon essence. Even without this one, other opportunities remained. Interestingly, the very thing he hated moments ago, the tiger demon shattering the essence, was now his only consolation. He knew what was truly important and realized he had no more time to waste. Without another word, he quickly changed direction to hunt down the remaining fragments. Deep underground, Anirecap's body was still crackling with residual electricity, his muscles twitching uncontrollably. Although he had survived the lightning fist, he wasn't entirely immune to its effects. The paralysis brought on by the lightning was terrifying. Shi Jian certainly lived up to his reputation as the senior brother of Mao Mao. The legends of the Lightning Dharma King were clearly no exaggeration. His mastery over lightning arts was absolute. Anirecap looked at his mangled scales and bloody wounds, which served as a grim reminder of that power. Luckily, Anirecap possessed enough self-awareness not to let his recent promotion to Demon General go to his head. He had been cautious from the start. By using a clone to distract Shi Jian first, he had barely managed to survive the theft. Otherwise, he would be nothing more than a dead snake by now. He breathed a quiet sigh of relief. His eyes began to glow with a golden light. The danger had been immense, but the reward was staggering. This was dragon essence from a creature that had cultivated for thousands of years. The flood dragon had been only a single step away from becoming a true dragon, and its power was horrifying. Even a mere eighth of that essence held incredible potential. To obtain such a treasure, any injury was a small price to pay as long as he remained alive. At this moment, he had no interest in anything else but his prize. At this point, only one thought remained in his mind: to refine the dragon essence. He could no longer resist the urge and quickly swallowed it whole to absorb its power. A second later, the system notification suddenly popped up.